The Halls of Injustice video series doesn't do very well on the Omegon YouTube channel, which is why I made a separate crime channel to upload shorts at the very least. Because I've been following a case called the Sycamore Gap Tree, I wanted to make this video and put out a poll first asking on the community tab whether or not this would be something people are interested in. Owing to the fact these videos typically don't do very well, I've gotten to a point now where I don't want to be spending too much time making something that doesn't do very well, because this is my job after all. Enjoyment of personal topics is one thing, but I do actually need to pay bills. No, I'm not promoting coffee, don't try me, or Streamlabs or whatever. So if you do enjoy these types of videos, don't forget to smash the like and share the video, or go to the Halls of Injustice YouTube channel, linked in the pinned comment. Yeah, I'll actually link something there for a change, and go subscribe there as well. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Hello everyone and welcome to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome two inmates whose numbers I can't be bothered to try and go through the history of this series to try and find out where we are. But since this is the 196th video in a playlist, let's assume 196.1 and 196.2. Their names are Adam Carruthers and Daniel Graham. They have committed a rather different crime to much of what we've covered before. We have covered fraud, we have covered S.A, we have covered unaliving. In fact, over the near 200 videos we have made on in this series, we've covered quite an array of crimes. Some cliche, for example, if I say female teacher, you say the obvious. Yes, every news article says has sex with, that's not correct in the slightest. Today we're going to be covering something that trended on Twitter, Sycamore Gap. More notably, the sycamore tree within that gap, a tree that has become iconic. And what we're going to have to do is tell you a bit about that and a bit about the two inmates before we get to what happened, what they did, the trial, the sentence, because it's quite fascinating really. So let's start with, what is the Sycamore Gap tree? The Sycamore Gap tree, or the Robin Hood tree, was a 150-year-old sycamore tree next to Hadrian's Wall in Northumberland, England. It had grown up until the point of it being cut down to a height of approximately 49 feet, which is about 15 meters. It has become a very popular attraction and is often described as one of the most photographed trees in the country, and may in fact be the most photographed point in all of Northumberland's National Park. When you see a photo like this, there are people aura farming. Yes, I'm aware of what this means now. The name Sycamore Gap was coined by National Trust employee Lawrence Hewer when the Ordnance Survey was remapping the area and asked if the previously unnamed spot had a designation. Sycamore trees are not native to the United Kingdom, and it was often believed that you can't plant them. They are very hardy trees, unless you're planting in clay, in which case, no. And grey squirrels like to ruin them when they're young. It was planted in the late 19th century by the previous landowner, a Newcastle lawyer called John Clayton, as a landscape feature. It is though believed the tree could in fact be older than 150 years. There are sketches of a tree in the gap to confirm this, going as far back as 1832. Up until the tree's felling on the 28th of September 2023, this was a very popular tourist spot. Not just because of the tree, not just because of how it looked, but also because of Hadrian's Wall as well. Historically, this is a very important heritage site, and there are some people that like to say that English people don't have culture or heritage. We point to things like Hadrian's Wall and a tree as well. Yeah. So with this information, we're now going to talk a bit more about the two new inmates we're going to be discussing today, Adam Carruthers and Daniel Graham, much of which I learnt yesterday while watching their sentencing on the 15th of July 2025, all of which we'll get to later. First, let's talk a bit about them. Adam Carruthers grew up in Wigton, which is a market town in Cumbria. His parents, in fact, still live there. It is believed that that is the kind of town where families stay for generations. That's cool. A childhood friend of his said he was a bit of an outcast, but also the last person expected to have been involved in the felling of a tree. This came from a good friend of his, a childhood friend in fact, who had said growing up we were the good kids. We couldn't get our heads around it. We would never ever think he would do something like that. He attended Nelson Tomlinson School, where other fellow pupils described him as a bit of a loner. At the time of his arrest, he had recently become a father for the second time and was living in a caravan with his partner at the Kirkbride airfield. In 2021, at the end of lockdowns, Adam Carruthers met Daniel Graham, when the latter, who was at that time a mechanic, repaired a Land Rover for Daniel Graham's father, so it could be used for his funeral. Daniel Graham called Carruthers his best pal and paid him to help him on jobs, splitting the cash evenly. Their friendship, though, splintered during the trial, so it wasn't a great friendship for the time that they were in fact friends. But when they were, when we go to Daniel Graham, up until the point of his father's passing, he was a bit of a nobody. He owned a site of land, he had developed on it, some with planning permission, some without. He had basically lived in a mobile home or a caravan of sorts behind a bunch of buildings he erected and a massive fence and gate. Adam Carruthers had, up until this point, no criminal record. Daniel Graham, though, did. Daniel Graham has had history in custody for varying charges, all of which should be referenced now, as the judge had explicitly stated during sentencing bear no impact on the sentence for the crime they have committed. So whereas with Adam Carruthers he was seen as a bit of a loner, yet someone that was always good, Daniel Graham was always seen as odd and explosive, a bully. So with this information in mind, we need to go to 2023 to the felling of the Sycamore Gap tree. In the early hours of September the 28th, 2023, during a high wind storm called Agnes, the Sycamore Gap tree was felled. The Northumberland National Park Authority believed it was done deliberately. I mean, based on the image, yes, it obviously was. Northumbria police described the felling as a deliberate act of vandalism, which it is, and also criminal damage to property, including Hadrian's Wall, which we'll get to something about that in a moment. As you can see from the image, it looks like it's been cut down with a chainsaw. Because of the storm, no one heard it happen. At the time, a 16-year-old boy and a man in his 60s were arrested in connection with the tree's felling. Later, two men, though in their 30s, from Cumbria. In the case of the boy and the man in his 60s, no further action was taken. On the 15th of May 2024, months after this had happened, two men had appeared in Newcastle Crown Court. One entered a plea of not guilty to both charges, and the second entered no plea at all. Both men were charged with causing £622,191 worth of criminal damage to the tree and £1,144 of damage to Hadrian's Wall. Yes, we English value the tree more than we value that. You're welcome. I remember when this first happened. I remember clearly a 16-year-old boy being arrested. I remember when it happened because people were talking everywhere. Everyone was talking about this because it was considered an iconic spot, with many believing that destroying something like that, there should be a sentence akin to that of life, which no, it shouldn't be, but we'll get to more about that in a bit. When the crime of felling the tree took place, Adam Carruthers and Daniel Graham had exchanged voice messages with each other, reveling in the notoriety. In one voice note, Daniel Graham had exclaimed, "It's gone viral, it's worldwide." Earlier in the day, Adam Carruthers had drunk a whole bottle of whiskey, which is a weird flex, because his day, according to him, had been quite tough. Apparently this may well have been a motivator, but we'll get to that later. The charges are criminal damage to both the tree and to Hadrian's Wall. And just before we get to that, it is quite common for people to keep a trophy when they commit certain crimes. Usually the unalive ones keep something, especially if they intend to commit more. In the case of Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, they kept a piece of the tree itself, which is an odd thing to keep hold of, especially considering the size of it. During the trial, a video was shown. The video in question was believed to be the very felling of the tree itself, showing Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers doing the deed itself. The prosecution tried to ascertain, while this was going on, what the actual motivation was. Both at varying points, earlier and later, were being held and were evaluated to try and work out whether or not there was a reason for this. Would you like the reason? For a laugh. Yeah, that's not a joke, by the way. A university professor, Dr. Philip Stone, who studies dark tourism, believed that the pair may have enjoyed watching the distress that they had caused from such spiteful, wanton ecological vandalism. The word schadenfreude came up, because they clamour for 15 minutes of fame, and seeing other people's grief is one hell of a way to crack one off. Something else that was debated during the trial was the value of the tree. £620,000. This was a value estimated because of Northumbrian Police's CAVAT system that was used to value this. Richard Wright, KC, told the court the prosecution put the tree's value at about $458,000, but from a legal perspective, the important thing was that it was agreed it was more than £5,000, which was the threshold for putting this into the higher category of harm. One of the main reasons they were captured as easily as they were is because on the side, they actually felled trees for money. So they had experience in this category, this field as it were. So it wasn't overly complicated for them to simply go and do something for the bants. The trial itself began on the 29th of April, and it ended on the 9th of May. Yes, it was quite a fast turnaround. On the fourth day of the trial, the prosecutors had said the two accused men had driven from Carlisle overnight during the storm to the tree, which showed a level of pre-planning to make mischief, as they believed it to be. On the 9th of May, both were found guilty after the jury took a mere 5 hours to reach unanimous verdicts. At this point, both were definitely held on remand until sentencing, which wasn't until the 15th of July, which is where we're going to go next. Before issuing a sentence, the judge read off a statement, going through the mitigating factors that might well reduce the sentence. It didn't. She also detailed other factors like previous criminal records and how they have no bearing on this case as they are not remotely related. So that did not change anything for Daniel Graham. They were both treated equal in this because it is believed they're equally involved. Therefore their sentences are identical, even if one of them was in prison earlier, December of last year, and Adam Carruthers May of this year, which are then used as a deduction for their sentence anyway. What I'm going to do is play the judge reading off their sentences for the crime. And I want to state that at no point during this is there any mention of them having to pay any kind of reparations for the damage done to the tree and to Hadrian's Wall.
Mr. Daniel Graham, Mr. Adam Carruthers, I pass the same sentence in respect of you. The sentence is, on count 1, 4 years and 3 months imprisonment. On count 2, 6 months imprisonment, but to be served concurrently with the sentence on count 1. Daniel Graham, you've been in prison since the 21st of December 2024. Adam Carruthers, you've been in prison since the 9th of May of 2025. The days that you've served will count towards your sentence. I've imposed a sentence of 4 years and 3 months imprisonment. You will be released no later than 40% of the way through the sentence.
The sentence given is the maximum under UK law that can be given. However, 40% served and then the rest in the community, to me, is not a sentence. That's a kick in the balls at best. But that is the UK criminal justice system to a T, really, isn't it? In the aftermath of this, sapling seeds have in fact been collected from the tree. The King has one in Windsor Castle's grounds. The local schools were given some saplings as well to grow into trees. And the tree itself, where the stump resides, has shown signs of regeneration, which is of course fantastic news. Sycamore trees do not grow fast, so it will be protected to give it another chance to grow again. However, from a stump to become more again, it's not the easiest. And it won't look anywhere near as impressive as it did before, without help anyway. As far as I'm concerned, they are under UK law given the maximum sentence, but will not serve the maximum sentence. And the fact there is no mention of any kind of paying back, which they should. No joke, they should both pay every single penny of that value back. I don't care what they are, who they are, I don't care how they do it. Crime's a crime and you pay for it. Since you both did it for a laugh, you're no longer friends, and well, one of you now won't be able to spend the best years of his life as a parent. Your punishment might be good enough, I don't know. Do let me know what you think in the comments down below. If I don't see you on Twitch later, have a great day, and thank you very much for listening. Except for you two smegheads. Enjoy rotting for the next year and a bit.